with us. I'm Lina Abu Habib from Lebanon. Well, I do many things, but I'm at the American University of Beirut and also with the Doria Feminist Fund for the MENA region. And together with Samira and Diana, we co-convened the Arab Caucus. And perhaps I should ask my colleagues, my friend, also Diana and Samira, to introduce themselves.
Samira,
Diana.
go ahead.
Yes, Diana, go ahead.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Diana Abu Abbas. I am the Executive Director at MENA Sexual Health Center in Beirut, Lebanon. And I am a co-convener for the MENA NGO CSW. I'm also a member of the youth group for NGO CSW. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Samira.
Okay, thank you, Lina. Hi, everyone. I'm very delighted to be among of you. I'm Samira Bikarden, from a board member of Association Démocratique des Femmes du Maroc. So as you will guess that I'm from Morocco. Thank you.
And also we have with us our colleague from NGO CSW New York, Devon Zingler, who has been working relentlessly behind the scenes to make this meeting happen. We're meeting in very extraordinary circumstances, as you all know. This is the first time we do this particular convening online, and although it does give us an opportunity to have more of you, to have space for more conversations without having to travel, but at the same time, I guess we have to deal with the challenges of the setup. So, and I think, at least I speak for me, we're learning as we're doing it, with a few mistakes along the way. So anyway, basically the way we do this is that this is a space for an open conversation around the themes of the CSW, depending on the year. We're happy to have you with us. We would like to suggest access for our discussions. And essentially what we thought about is, if we can start our conversation around, as MENA region, our comments around or thoughts around the zero draft. And the idea is that we'd like to gather these comments and to take it via the NGO CSW New York to the drafting committee. And the second thing is, given our context in the MENA region, which isn't one of the most pleasant or the most stable globally, it would be good to spend a little bit of time just to talk about our own areas of concern. What do we see as a gap, or as something that needs to be given more emphasis and more focus during the CSW? And then thirdly, we thought perhaps this would be a good opportunity for those of us who are involved in the upcoming. What are your thoughts in terms of the concerns? Again, I'm not very comfortable with using priorities, but the most salient issues that need to be brought forward for generation equality. And then last but not least, any information that you would like to share in terms of what you are doing at the CSW, where you would like, participation, support, etc. Please use this space to share it. Just before I open the floor, and again, this is a free space for conversation, I just want to emphasize that for us as feminists from the region, as intersectional feminists, as inclusive feminists, we embody in our work, in our discourse, in the way we deal with the CSW, we embody these concerns for inclusivity, for intersectionality, and for making sure that we're not contributing either consciously or unconsciously in increasing the invisibility of any group that is considered taboo in the region, or in furthering the oppression of any group who is traditionally oppressed in the MENA region. This is our starting point. And again, this space is a space that is feminist, inclusive, and which embodies feminist principles. So with this, may I ask my colleagues Samira and Diana if they have any comments they would like to make before we start our conversation. And I think Devon, can you confirm we do, I mean, in terms of Beirut time, we have until 2:30 Beirut time, which would be, gosh, I don't know, in EST.
Yep. Yeah, 8:30 here in New York.
Perfect. Okay, so Diana and Samira, would you like to add some comments just to frame the conversation before we start?
Thank you.
Yeah, go on, Diana.
Samira?
Thank you. Thank you, Lina. I have nothing to add. Thanks.
Okay, Samira?
Nothing special, thank you.
Okay. Tayyib, I'm going to, organically moderate the first part of the conversation. And the idea is, if you agree, is to collect your thoughts on the zero draft. And maybe at some point I will ask my colleague from the Arab Feminist Network, Dr. Fatma Khafagi, who's with us. I think Fatma is with us. I saw her earlier. Maybe to share with us the comments of the Arab Feminist Network on the zero draft. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Lina. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I think, I mean, we've been really working on two things, and thanks to Diana, Samira, and yourself, Lina, on including, the comments of the network into the zero draft. And on the other hand, also, I've been working with another group on drafting recommendation and position paper for CSOs in the Arab region. And mostly the main issues in the position recommendation paper was mentioning the problem and reminding our member states of the problem that women are facing because of the continuing of the conflict in the region, and looking at both the decrease or non-existence actually of women in leadership positions, and in order not to be very much satisfied with an increasing number in some Arab countries of women in parliaments or women as ministers, but in all other areas, like, I mean, in some countries there are no or very, very small number of women judges, that also not only a discrimination against women, but also it is delaying the access to justice as well. There is actually no women or very few women when we talk about local level of municipalities and mayors and so on, and also in the private sector and in boards of companies as well. So we've been listing all the leadership positions that Arab women are not really accessing or accessing in very few numbers. Also in the area of violence against women, we have enumerated the problems starting from the lack of comprehensive, holistic laws on gender-based violence in the majority of Arab countries, and also been asking for such frameworks, and also asking for improving the implementation of such laws, and enumerating the many obstacles that, I mean, even if some countries have holistic laws, but the implementation is still not really taking place in many areas. So I think there are quite a few of messages that we are advancing to the Arab member states, and also maybe I should mention the weak role of Arab women in political parties, for also many reasons that the government is putting obstacles in front of the political parties in general, and also like lack of funds, lack of freedom of expression, of assembly, and so on. So this is what I can remember, Lina, from the position paper, and I'm sure you've addressed some of it in the zero draft. Thank you.
Shukran, yes, thank you. Just to say that this position paper comes from a feminist network that was created, including women, feminist organizations from the region, when the whole conversation started for the preparation towards generation equality. Elga? You have to unmute, Elga.
Yes, exactly. I was trying to find the button in the black. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm Helga from Germany, and I've done various work around Palestinians in Palestine, Israel. And my question as to the zero draft is, if stateless people and refugees are mentioned as particularly vulnerable, and in that case, I'm speaking about the various Palestinians, that is about 4 million, 4.5 million spread all over in the MENA region. And I'm also speaking about people who are still called stateless. So for example, I know that in Golan, the people do not have a passport that says that they are Israelis or Syrian or anything else. They are stateless. And I wonder who is responsible for them when it comes to health concerns. And that is covering the vaccination as well. Who is responsible for vaccinating them? So my special concern is the refugees and the stateless, and of course, in particular, women and girls. Who is responsible when it comes to social services, and how can they be covered? And I would like to add a group of refugees or people who are in occupied territories apart from the occupied territories of Palestine. Turkey has occupied northern Syria since 2018. So that is also a group of people that are highly vulnerable. Some of them have moved to or have been driven out to Turkey. So who is responsible for those people? And of course, again, it is people, but in particular, women who are struck by it worse. So my question about stateless and refugees and social services, whatever it is for them.
Okay. Helga, do you mean that you would like to see this more clearly in the concerns of the current CSW expressed more clearly?
Yes, I would like to see it more clearly, because they are well, the governments who might be responsible because the people are in their area react differently, and they just pass it on as a responsibility to international community, to the UN, and wherever they try to avoid taking responsibility. I mean, in the occupation case, it is clear that there is the Geneva Convention, but they are trying to avoid saying something about it. So I think they are more vulnerable than others. And well, I forgot to mention that there are also refugees inside Israel, and Israel is trying to, well, get them out of the country on various kinds of contracts, going to Africa, offering African countries support for taking over refugees that have come to Israel. It's not a high number, but I know that the women there try to avoid being expelled or try to avoid having to go into camps by getting married, because that is a safer state for them. So, I mean, this is no option to be kind of forced into marriage, finding a husband to be better protected. So, as I said, the refugees, and in particular those who then are called stateless, are a special concern. And maybe I just add, actually, there are women here in my hometown, Black women from Africa, who are called stateless, and they give birth to babies, and the fathers are Germans, and their children do not get birth certificates because they are simply called stateless. So nobody responsible for them. So it's not only in that region, but I know that in that region you have a far higher number of refugees and stateless people than anywhere else.
Thank you, Helga. My colleague Diana is going to share in the chat box the zero draft in, I think we have it in 3 languages, Diana, no? English, Arabic, and French. May I ask who would like to, Helga, may I ask you to put your hand down? May I ask who would like to take the floor next? Again, at this stage, for the coming few minutes, we're commenting on the zero draft. Any comments, any feedback? Certainly the Arab Caucus meetings online are way less agitated than physically at the church center. Any other comments?
Lina, may I?
Yes, please, Samira.
Yeah, I just wanted to a comment on the question of Helga. I think currently there is no mention to refugees in the zero draft. The first version, there is no mention to the refugees, either to the homeless, stateless persons. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, which is I mean, actually, if the gaps in the zero drafts are much more than what we would have liked to see there. Certainly, the problem is that the invisible remain invisible. Refugees and displaced people of different sexual orientation and gender identities, the girl child. I mean, it's appalling that in 2021, we are still struggling to challenge the invisibility of large groups of people. Any other comments? Okay, as I said, it's way less agitated than maybe that's how we should have it from now on, online. Would you like to, does anybody have would like to address the second point? And I think probably Helga has kind of kicked off the conversation on the second point. What are the most salient, the most critical issues for this region? I know we need to look at it from the entry point of the theme of this CSW, but I think this theme is quite elastic, so we can, so we don't need to be really limited to figures and numbers. So please go ahead. Again, it's an open space. Please don't make me talk to myself all the time.
Hello. Hi, Dr. Lina. Can I share a certain point? So just to reflect back on the Zero document, so the effect of the pandemic was highlighted, but it was more in the sense of decision making and the impact on the progress towards gender equality. I would have preferred if it also reflected back on how the quarantine has significantly increased gender-based violence and domestic abuse, and how we have concrete resources about that. I mean, we're all very familiar about women's vulnerability to gender-based violence and domestic abuse, but now we have concrete examples. For example, some shelters in Lebanon were at maximum capacity during the early pandemic because they were getting maybe twice, if not more, numbers of calls and cases of domestic abuse, etc., because women are spending more time at home with their family members, and they are subject to the frustration of their usually male family members, and they're expected to take care of their children who are also at home, but also if they have other jobs or a career, then there's just added labor to them. And even though it was kind of reflected, I think maybe we can just highlight in terms of violence within households and the impact of the lockdown on that issue.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And if I may comment on what Sarah, my colleague from Lebanon, is saying, what happened quickly during the pandemic this year is that the amount of evidence and qualitative, quantitative, anecdotal evidence that we have been able to gather in relation to the differential impact of the pandemic. In Lebanon and Syria, we have partly, essentially due to the work of Marsa, for instance, and Mawjoudeen in Tunisia, we have tangible, scary evidence of the violence against sex workers and the queer community as a direct result of the lockdown, and of course, coupled with the economic breakdown. But we're not seeing this addressed or taken seriously or reflected in any form, when we're conceptualizing women's leadership, and in terms of who's on the table to address these injustices that have been compounded by the pandemic. And in terms of the MENA region, especially in terms of leadership in the MENA region, our regimes are essentially clanic, parochial, patriarchal, of course. So the table is incredibly small and incredibly selective. So I think that's my contribution. One main area of concern is who is, really the need to recognize that the systems in this region are flawed, problematic, corrupt, and therefore, is there any possibility for reform within the system to bring in more women and to bring in a different agenda? Any other comments on the Zero draft? I saw a comment in the chat box, and I would like maybe invite Marian Booker from IAW to share it with us in terms of what kind of language do we need. Marian, are you still with us?
Yes, I am. Just a minute. Thank you so much. Yes. International Alliance of Women has a commission on human rights, and it focuses very much on this registration, birth registration, and citizenship for everyone. And there's the UN High Commissioner for Refugees who has this campaign. I think the benchmark is 2030. There should be no stateless person in this world. Okay, it's very ambitious, but we could refer to this maybe in the first section of the CSW document, where there are these general paragraphs. And also there's the Convention on the Rights of Migrant Families, or migrant workers and their families. It's a bit, the language is difficult, but it is on women and girls as well. I think the CEDAW has also, in many concluding comments to state reports and NGO reports, commented in the last section maybe of their concluding comments on vulnerable groups and migrants and refugee women and girls who should be protected under each rights and law and country. So I think it should be possible to frame, first of all, take agreed language, and then second, get included some language about this. Also, there's the, Global Compact for Migration, which is since 3 years, but it is maybe difficult because it is based on the rights and protection, but I think the human rights treaties are much stronger.
Thank you so much, Marion. And I think definitely the issue of language, the issues of language is primordial, particularly in our region. Diana, you wanted to say something about representation?
Yes, thank you, Lina. We have seen over the, I'm speaking from my experience, which is over the last 15 years, and we see that the spaces in feminist circles are rarely occupied by women of diverse gender identities and sexualities in leadership spaces. And I think that this has been affecting how we strategize for the feminist movement in Lebanon and in the region. And it's also coupled with a generational gap that comes between the people working in the feminist movement. And I also want to refer to the other difference of people who identify as women's rights defenders versus the feminists, which is a dichotomy that we still have here. Hopefully, I hope we can bridge this gap together, but I also think it's necessary for us to have more conversations, to open up the floor, to put our ideas aside. I speak for myself, even to be willing to listen to other people and to listen to their views and to share our stories together so that we can create a new narrative together and we can plan ahead for the work of women's rights and minorities in the region.
Thank you, Diana. I have Talin, whose hand is up. Talin, tfaddali. Thanks, Diana. And then Rima Jabi.
Yes, hello everyone. Unfortunately,
just 1 second, Talin. Sorry, may I ask you to mute, please, whoever is not muted? It's very disturbing. May I ask you to mute? Just Talin, could you go ahead? May I ask?
It's Talin who has sound in the background. Okay. So if she's going to unmute,
Talin, you had sound in the background.
Yes, yes, I'm sorry for that.
Talin,
I can't help
in
it.
The background. You have Okay, then I can't give you the floor because we can't hear you actually. If you could fix it, let me go to Rima Jabi first.
Hello, Lina. Thank you for this, and thank you for this lovely session. I mean, to add to what Helga said about refugees and the status of refugees, especially abroad, I think there is a very important issue of networking. I give you an example and how networking is really needed. I know that a lot of refugees, especially Syrian refugees abroad and women refugees, suffer from domestic violence and suffer from gender-based violence. But unfortunately, when they do try to go I mean, first they don't know how to report. And when we do have women activists, Syrian women activists abroad, who try to go and report on their behalf, they are not welcome. And they're not taken seriously by the police or anyone. And this is where it's important for for feminist network abroad to really collaborate with the women activists abroad, Syrian women activists, and help them to overcome this issue and a lot of issues such as speech of hatred and other issues concerning women abroad. So networking, collaboration between refugee women and host community women is really needed. Thank you, Lina.
Shukran, Reem, and it's always a pleasure to see you again, even though virtually. I think Taline is ready, and then we have Sahar Mohsin, and then Mr. Haitham. Taline?
Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't realize it was so noisy next to me. Unfortunately, I didn't have the opportunity to review the zero draft until now, just now. But having a quick look at it, I just have some points. One of them is that the word key population is not mentioned. Yes, we have women, we have women in leadership, but what about key population? And we know how much during COVID, key population are the most vulnerable population right now. Like, for example, when we talk about LGBT community, we talk about trans women, we talk about sex workers, we talk about women living with HIV. We see this is not mentioned. And my second point is that organization led by women is essential, but I see a lack of community-led organization. What about community-led organization and we see globally and international level, we see how much importance is given to community voice. It's not just the voice of the woman. We need to take it out there, but also women from the community, women from key populations, women who are directly affected by everything that is going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Taline. That's a very important point, and it speaks to the trend, to the traditional trend of excluding, not just excluding women, but excluding the queer community, excluding purposely and repeatedly and systematically being exclusive. So I totally agree with you. I think I have Sahar. Sahar, please.
Thank you. Yes, I just really wanted to echo what Rim said about this real important need for feminist networks, because what you find, I live in Germany, and what you find here often is that most of the social help agencies are like designed towards assimilation. So it's like, teach them German, that's all they need. That's the only thing they need. And so many of the actual concerns and needs of the people, I'm not just going to say that they're ignored, in that they're just not seen. It's just that people have this one level fixation. And so I do think that we do need to have highly informed organizing behind how we're constructing social help. And if we just leave it to communities that may not have this intersectional piece that you've mentioned a few times, Lina, of recognizing different sexual diversities and issues of ability or health concerns like HIV. So by having people who are more highly educated organizing these networks, maybe the help that needs to come towards these women will. And I'm always really suggesting and encouraging that there be like autonomy supporting programs, so like people know what they need, and this idea that there always be someone who comes in and tells you what you need. I mean, obviously it always comes down to the money is the problem, right? So like people are getting a lot of money to teach you German when that's not what you need to get away from abuse and get into like a stable living situation where you have autonomy and safety. And yet that is what's necessary to get those things moving forward, is not just that finance, but that network community support to really prioritize the needs of those that are most affected by this.
Thank you, Sahar. That's a great point. Thank you. Haitham?
Yes. Thank you, first of all, for giving us the floor. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yes, okay. First of all, we would like to confirm that we, the men, are standing behind women's rights anywhere in all parts of the world. But I'm going to specify some few, as I am Lebanese and residing in Lebanon, to say that the women's rights in Lebanon are still lacking many aspects, especially economic rights, in the absence of clear policies that achieve gender equality in various fields. Today, women face discrimination based on outdated mentalities in terms of wage distribution and dealing with them in economic matters, even though they are no longer backup workforces. Cultural, religious, and traditional norms undermine a woman's economic independence and contribute to her economic subordination to her husband. The lack of statistics and these disaggregated data on economic and social rights remain a serious concern also in Lebanon. This is a result of inadequate and insufficient policy behind adopted. I'm going to brief it to say what are the possible solutions, and it is for our stand and point of view, we resume it in 5 points.
Hey, Sam, if you could be brief, just so, because we don't have...
Yes, I'm going to brief it in 5 points, this is what I'm saying. Adopting a comprehensive approach to developing a national strategy to protect and develop the productivity, the sectors that concern women. Ratify the optional protocol to the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, and ensure the effective implementation of international treaties through the adoption of laws and reform related to achieving gender equality. Adopting a new and comprehensive approach to reduce acute poverty and inequality at various levels, and to strengthen national productive sectors to generate employment opportunities, reconsidering policies of redistribution and adopting policies that put the economic and social rights of women into the forefront. 4, expanding the legal literacy plan to cover all Lebanese territories and region, and adopting training, information, and review centers for citizens to learn about rights and equality between women and men. Finally, 5, introduce legislation that promotes equality and discourage discrimination on the basis of sex in all economies. Thank you.
Haitham, may I ask you to put your hand down, please? Joanne, actually, I was looking at your comment in the chat box, and I was hoping you would share it with us. So please go ahead.
Thank you so much. And I really appreciate being here with such a wellspring of knowledge. I'm Joan Washington, and I'm here in Detroit, Michigan. Actually, in Metro Detroit and in Dearborn, we have the largest population of Middle Easterners outside the Middle East. And I am not familiar with your document. I'm here actually for the first time, but I spent like 8 years in the Middle East, in Saudi Arabia, in Yemen, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, and I was in Paris, Africa, doing a lot of international training. So I know a little bit about culture and heritage. But as I'm listening to all of you talking, there is a gap. And to me, looking at the way I think, I'm looking at, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. It would be great if you had a app, a device, an app that would allow people who are knowledgeable in not all of it, but if you had sectors of information where people could come together and bring you what you're looking for, that key, bring that together so you can evaluate and look at lessons learned and how other cultures are dealing with exactly what you're dealing with, and with a good amount of success. I think this would be, when you have a war, you want to be, because this is a war, you want to be able to have a ground level soldiers, people who are doing what you're doing and then moving on. So why not share that information as a whole, so you're not reinventing the wheel every single time you want to solve a problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. May I don't see any new hands up, and may I ask Navina, who shared who shared a comment in the chat box, to share it with us?
Okay, I'm feeling very nervous about it. This is my first time at CSW. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, this is my first time at CSW. I've met some of you wonderful panelists in Amman last year, or was it the year before, when you all had a regional meeting. So my question really was, how can, as a faith leader myself, how can faith organizations respond, support, and collaborate with, the civil society and action coalitions and all of you who work so tremendously to bring up issues of gender equality and, gender-based violence and domestic violence in this really chaotic region where there is so much insecurity on all sides, and so much patriarchal systems and misogyny already existing in the fabric of society. And it also infiltrates faith organizations. But how can we change that as leaders of faith organizations, and how can we work together with you all to see the change in society? Because unless we all work together, we're not going to be able to see much change. And I want to be positive and to find solutions for change, even if it's incremental change. Does that make sense?
It does, actually, Navina. Thank you. Were you with us in Amman in 2019?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry, my bad. I just don't remember.
No, that was a long time ago. No worries at all.
That was pre-pandemic. Devon has shared with us the NGO CSW advocacy guide for the CSW. I also take this opportunity to tell you that that this guide is available also in Arabic. As far as I remember, I think it's also available in French. And Diana, could you tell us if all of this is available on the Arab States webpage?
I will double check that now and share the link with you if it's available.
Okay, and the other thing that an information that Marian has shared with us about the second version of the draft. So if you would like to consult it. Any other comments? Nicole.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Nicole.
I thought Joanne brought up a great point, speaking to the integration of technology in helping women and girls around the world be able to deal with some of these issues as it pertains to the refugee situation in the camps. I've seen and heard from different people during CSW about the use of technology, getting the female lawyers together to create documents to help support some of the women in different places. But we need to, mobilize and utilize the technology in order to help move things forward. And I think that's something we should really look into with the advent of more artificial intelligence being used. Someone brought the case study of saying we've been to a lot of conferences. Like from this conference, if we could aggregate all of the information together, we can sort of use the information that we gather, like all of the feedback that we've been getting, and we could come up with using artificial intelligence to come up with more solid solutions of actionable items that we can move forward together, because the information is here, and the answer to a lot of these problems could be figured out using artificial intelligence as a way to solve some of these issues. So I just thought that was really good that came up from a senior woman that had a lot of experience from I think it was IBWA. She was there when the inception of different organizations. So, from her seasoned position, she said that the use of artificial intelligence to help solve a lot of these community issues, that are affecting women and girls around the world can sort of help us leap over some of these problems that have been stagnant, if we can take advantage of that. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Nicole. I'm going to go back to Elga. She has her hand up. Nicole, may I ask you to put your hand down? Elga?
Thank you. I'm really happy that I can be here and can speak about this draft conclusion. It has been of great concern for me. Thank you so much. But what I wanted to speak about is a different point from refugees. I've been to some events, not only here in CSW, which were focusing on women's participation in peace negotiations. And we have the conflict of Syria, we have the conflict of Palestine, we have the conflict of Libya in the MENA, and Yemen, of course, in the MENA Arab area. And I know that there are organizations that have tried to participate, but in the last moment, they have been pushed out, either by the parties that were concerned to take part, meaning that the parties from the countries that were fighting against each other would not include women. And so I'm not quite sure about the language in the second draft conclusion. There are actually 4 mentionings of the UN Security Resolution 1325. So it is in, but I'm not sure if it really pushes the United Nations or the intermediating states, the governments that participate, like in Palestine now, Jordan, Germany, France, and Egypt, if they couldn't be more pushing to have women in, and maybe very concrete as another party, as a party of themselves. I mean, they concern more than half of the people who are concerned, who are struck by the war, by the conflict. So why not make them a party of their own so that they are in? Because they are pushed out. That is what I learned from these organizations that try to be in particular in Yemen and in Libya.
Thank you, Helga. I have, Helga, may I ask you to put your hand down? Yes. May I ask Wafa Rahman, she has her hand up? Wafa?
Yes. Hello, Wafa Abdul Rahman. So thank you for this meeting. I have a few points, very quick. One is the shrinking space of civil society and how it connects to the feminist movement, to the women movement in the different Arab countries. Because at least what I see in Palestine, being Palestinian, now there is a huge attack on civil society in general, and nobody is really taking into consideration how this affects the women's organizations and how we're tied to the civil society movement as women organizations. And service providers as well, of course. This is my first point. And my second point is actually, I'm not very familiar with the language. Like I saw the draft, I could see it includes everything, yet there are things that I don't feel they're included. For instance, when we talk about great statements that get formulated in a very nice language, I mean, nice in terms of effective language, yet with the practices, and I'll start with the UN, like for instance, we're talking about women in decision-making when the UN envoy to the Palestinian territory and to the Palestinian-Israeli peace process hardly meets with women and hardly consults with women when it comes to negotiations or reconciliation, etc. So it's not only the wording of statements, but also the commitment of the UN and the genuine belief of the UN itself and its representatives that the women value and they have a different perspective towards the different issues of the conflicts. This is, I don't really see it very strong. Final point is concerning women's participation and the election. And again, back to the Palestinian case in particular, when now they're preparing for the elections, we weren't part of the as women. We weren't part of the reconciliation process in Cairo. We were completely ignored. Nobody mentioned that outside the Palestinian women's movement. And today we're facing the issue of the recognition of the outcome of the elections. This is women in politics. This is us as people, not only as women. Then how the UN, how the international community, how the feminist movement is going to handle such cases, not only when it comes to Palestine, but other cases when the elections are not designed in accordance with the wishes of the international community. Thank you very much.
Sure, thank you, Wafa. May I ask you to put your hand down, please? Any other comments, whether on the draft text or on the key issues, most salient points related to the region? Marion, would you? Marion and Joanne.
Yes, thanks a lot. I know about the situation in Egypt because I worked there as a consultant on the previous election with women who wanted to become candidate, and I know how disappointing the whole situation is and dangerous also. But I can only, encourage you to organize with the feminists in Egypt. There are a lot, and also to not give up and link for this next processes, maybe with the academia, women of the academia in Egypt, and even outside to take trainings or to get your own campaigns organized the next time. We know it is really hard to to get feet on the ground there for women in Egypt in the elections, but there are a few and there are organizations supporting. And I have an issue I want to just recommend that we insert language to the document of the CSW now on financing for gender equality. I'm an expert on gender budgeting, and I recognize that now in the second version there is a lot of language, but it might be also deleted again. And at least we need language at each measure. So if you have any measure, any project, any action you want to be inserted, it must be backed up by money. You know this, by whether it's a state budget, finances from funds, from philanthropic community, investment. We ask for bold or robust investment in gender equality. And there is an agreed language in the CSW 52 agreed conclusion. It was on financing for gender equality. So please try to add as much as possible on finances where you can.
Thank you, Marion. I don't think maybe seen from afar, it's difficult to realize this because feminists from MENA may not be in the official narrative, but I don't think there is a case of giving up. To the contrary, local feminists are incredibly, struggling on a daily basis in a situation where regimes are patriarchal and violent. So, but at the same time, I don't think it's a case of giving up. I have Joan and then Talene and then Haysam. If I could give priority to the women in this space to talk, and then we'll see. I think it's only fair. Joanne?
Thank you. I just want to, actually Marion did such a beautiful job because I was going to mention some of the things that she had mentioned and then go back and echo what Nicole had said, as far as making sure that at the end of this, you have all this wealth during this forum. So capitalize off of that, utilize these people while you have them fresh in your mind. And also about money, you have a number of international or global organizations that have money actually earmarked for these particular situations. So take advantage of that, and then, branch out in smaller groups worldwide, and so they can feed in, to what your master plan is to make sure that when you fall short, you have that backup. So, you know, you have anything and everything that you need to keep your program alive. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. And if I can ask both of you and Marian to put your hands down. Before I give the floor to Taline, I just want to clarify that if you send us any material related to the MENA region, to the Arab region, we have wonderful young feminist interns from the region who are totally devoted to making everything available on our website. So whatever you send us, please, you know, please send as much as possible, and we'll make sure that it's out there. Taline, please go ahead.
Yes, a very quick note. We are talking about the MENA region. Unfortunately, we always go back to the national level. I can talk hours about Lebanon. Other people can talk hours about their own country, but we need to have a global vision. We need to tackle the problems we are facing as a region. We need to have the solution as a region. We need to work together and really have a vision of regional intervention and not just each country on its own. And this will give us the more strength and power much needed to have impact. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Taline. May I ask, Taline, may I ask you to put your hand down, please? Thank you. If we don't have any other comments, I'd like to suggest that we use, thank you, Sarah, for your comment. I think we're going to collect all the comments, and then we'll see how, you know, how we can keep the conversation going. Rizlan?
Yes.
Rizlan?
Yes.
Yes. Please go ahead.
Okay. Just I want to. I agree with Taline, and I just want to add one sentence, if you want. We need to have one vision, region vision, and we need also to the support, more support of CSW, because we want the CSW to make more pressure on our governments, and in order to put more equality, more justice, more parity, more women in decision making. So each year we meet in CSW, and sorry, but we say always the same thing, and our problem is the same. in the MENA region or African region or Arab region, we have the same problem each year, and we talk about this problem and we don't see the solutions. I just want to say, please, for the CSW to put more. Yesterday and this morning, I follow the discussion and of high level in CSW, and I heard our ministers from Palestine, from Syria, from other countries, and it's the same speech. We do, but we do anything. We see that in our country, we don't see anything. And I want to give message for the CSW to make more pressure for our governments to make more equality, political equality, programs equality, and include all the women and young people in each country. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Islan. Can I ask you to put your hand down? And Annabelle, thank you for your comments. I have Diana who would like to talk, and then Nicole. Diana?
Thank you, Lina. I just want to share a quick comment when it comes to working with faith-based organizations, since no one tackled the subject. I will speak from personal experience about having a lack of trust as a queer person with faith-based organizations and the faith in general. And because of the oppression that we see through the religious institutions, I find it very difficult to collaborate with faith-based organizations, even though I know we have a lot of very successful examples, and I totally support the idea behind it. I think we need to strengthen our alliances together, but I think we need to have an honest conversation that there is a basis for fear between working in organizations and civil society, especially when it comes to sexual and reproductive health, which is my field. This is why I'm speaking about this topic specifically, and queer rights. Also, I want to say something else about the CSW. The first time I attended was 2 years ago, and just like Islan was saying, we heard the same. We hear the same speech every year. But also, I want us all to think, how can we make more pressure as a region if our countries do not have the same vision and do not have the same ideology? I know when it comes to sexual and reproductive rights that Lebanon and Tunisia are very vocal when it comes to being progressive about sexual and reproductive health and rights, while we face a lot of objections from the other countries. And luckily, our countries have been able to break away from the lobby that goes against women's rights in general and the SRHR movement. So I think we need to create pressure on individual levels in our countries when it comes to lobbying with our country representative at the CSW, so that they can push for our ideas more. And that's how we can create pressure as a region. We cannot do it on an individual basis. So, and as long as our governments are putting pressure on our representatives, we need to find a way to reduce that pressure and get more allies. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. And that's a very powerful point. Yes, Rizlan, I partially, I mean, it doesn't matter whether I agree or not, but I partially agree with you. But again, the CSW space, and that's why it's important to preserve it as a space for feminists, as a space for women, as a space for queer women, because it is our space for lobbying, for advocacy, and also for connecting the way we are connecting now. I think I have Nicole.
Oh yes, I wanted to speak to the point of Rizlan, that she says we've been here to many conferences. I've met a lot. I haven't been coming for I guess it's maybe 10 years, but there are women that have been coming to CSW since the inception, and I speak to them and they said, you know, we're continuing this fight and we're here for a reason, because we want progress. That's why we're continuing to meet, you know, to meet and convene. But we are making progress. The younger people that are coming in, they're listening to what we have to say, and they are making changes. And with the pandemic, it's pushed us all to this global level of virtual. So we're able to connect with each other and be able to hear each other's stories a little bit more authentically to understand the importance of it. But I think that just to let everyone know, progress can look slow, but there's going to be a leap that we're going to make, because we are all coming together and we're continuing to fight these fights on many fronts. And yes, we are going to make changes, and we are making changes. So I would just encourage all of the women that have been, you know, fighting this fight for a long time to continue, and that we are making progress. And the young women that are coming after us, they have more tools, and they are going to, you know, they're going to make these leaps that we need to make. So I just want to encourage everyone, because this has been a long fight for many women since the beginning of Committee for the Status of Women, and it's not going to be easy, but we are the ones that are going to have to do it. So I appreciate everyone for their comments and everything they've said, and especially women that have been out here for over 20 years or more fighting these battles. And I appreciate their input, and it has made a big difference in many people's lives.
Thank you, Nicole. And I totally agree with you. I think even the pushback and even the, especially the pushback is a result. I think the more the pushback and the more violent this pushback is, at least the way we're seeing it in the region, it is indicative of progress. It depends on how do we define, how do we frame results. In the comments, I have my colleague Fatma Khafagi from Egypt. Fatma, you cannot find the. Please go ahead, Fatma.
Okay, thank you, Lina. I just want to get back actually to what Wafa said as one of the main challenges we're facing, which is the shrinking space for civil society. I mean, including feminists, especially feminists and human rights CSOs. In so many ways, and I think the majority of we face this in the majority of the Arab countries, from closing feminist NGOs, banning them from traveling, you know, putting all obstacles on registration, on accessing funds, and so on. And when we get around this and we have regional networks, because it was said, let's look for, you know, regional solutions, because it's the only way to have, you know, more power is to get together. I am so amazed of the donors and the UN. So the first question they ask, what is your legality? Are you registered? Are you a legal entity? They know. I mean, we cannot really register even in our own country, so we cannot register as networks, regional networks. So I can see it as so much of a contradiction, actually, that is not helping us at all. And maybe this is something we should really voice it, I mean, strongly to UN, to donors, that if you really keen about, you know, nobody left behind, so you also have to enlarge your requirements in order not to stop, you know, movements from really working. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Fatima, please, please ping me again if you would like to take the floor. Norma, I'm going to give Norma the floor because that's her first time. Norma Domi. Norma?
Thank you very much, Lina. I was searching for the
unmute
mute button. This has been a powerful conversation. I come to you from Ottawa, Canada. I am the Vice President of the Professional Institute of the Public Service of Canada. And I'm here with the Canadian Labour Congress delegation. There's about 100 plus of us in that Canadian delegation. I've been listening to the conversation, and I just wanted to add to some of the encouragement that I've heard over the last few minutes. I just wanted to let you know that the government of Canada has awarded an equal fund, which is a historic 300 million contribution to build a new global funding mechanism and leverage more resources for gender equality around the world. These funds will be invested and paired with an ambitious program that is to leverage philanthropic and bilateral donor support to create a long-term and self-sustaining source of funding for women's rights organizations and movements in developing countries. So I would encourage you to take advantage of this. Our minister, Miriam Monseth is leading the charge internationally for Canada and coordinating with others internationally. So I would say it's the equalityfund.ca. And I'd encourage you to take advantage of this to leverage and to help advance the feminist movement worldwide.
Thank you, Norma. May I ask those of you who haven't introduced themselves in the chat box to just put their name and also their email. Norma, can I ask you as well to include your name?
Absolutely. I'm happy to do that. Thank you very much, Lena.
Thank you. Sahar, back to you.
Thank you. I just wanted to also respond to the question about religious professionals. There's a lot of advocacy organizations out there. So there's a lot of ways where different religious organizations and different religious congregations are coming together to do this work. So I think that also really honoring that there has been a lot of harm done by religion, and it's often like the lens with which we see how we can do this work doesn't necessarily need to be that we put our foot in, where other people are still healing, whereas we can still assist the process within our own networks. And, it always comes back to like collaboration, unification in these battles. And so I just feel free to, I put my email in the chat, and I work with a few international faith-based advocacy organizations that I can suggest.
Thank you, Sahar. May I ask you to put your hand down? Also, Norma, please may I ask you to put your hand down? Before I give the floor to Marion again, Navina, thank you for your thoughtful response. This is a very, very problematic issue. Our experience, I want to reiterate Diana's sentiment, our experience in this region in terms of the ways in which religious institutions have been part and parcel of the oppression of women, LGBTQI, and other communities is not at all encouraging. And the ways in which religious institutions have been, part and parcel of the regime has also been and remains a very, very problematic issue. Marion, please.
Yes, I have a few hints as to money. The one is, I can just echo the speaker before, the International Women's Foundations and regional women's feminist networks are reaching out to the philanthropic community at the moment very intensively. To make them finance for gender equality, fund for finance, and understand what it is, and under the mechanic of a gender budgeting process, which is steering properly with indicators and benchmarks and so on. And the European Women's Lobby is one. They are our delegates here. We are reaching out to a variety of huge donors and making them responsive to gender equality. So I want to just mention Chanel Foundation is really targeting on women's economic empowerment. They are in France, but they're also speaking English and open for projects. And there's another issue, it was mentioned, the Women, Peace and Security Agenda. There's the new action plan on 1325 in Germany, but also in other countries, they are coming up and they are more proper and they're more asking your response and your participation in the regions with crisis. And Germany has sent a circular letter to all embassies and consulates to respond to women's and girls' civil society or NGO organizations, invite them, participate, have dialogues, and ask what they need for being on the negotiation table, in peace process, and in other means. And then as to human rights defender, women human rights defender, there are currently upcoming more and more programs for supporting those who are under threat. And I can only later paste one here. It's Elisabeth Selbert Initiative in Germany, and their human rights defenders, women and men alike, can apply for a fund or for a stay in a country which is safe, or a program to release, to relax, to write, to study for a while before coming back if it is necessary. My question is, will this caucus be permanent? Is there any mailing list? The members of my organization could probably then register or and subscribe to this mailing list, because the North American and European caucus has a mailing list, and we are working continuously from one CSW to the other one. And I think this has strengthened our approach to the CSW, because we can prepare for much longer time. We know each other better, and there's a big network then.
Thank you so much, Marion. And with this, we're coming to the end of our were important, but most of you highlighted the key priorities for the region, but also some of the strategies, be it in terms of organizing or in terms of strategies for action, or in terms of what tools can be used to promote work in the feminist activism in the region. Also, just a couple more issues. First of all, in terms of information, I want to invite you all to visit as of today, or maybe possibly tomorrow, to visit the Arab States page of the NGO CSW New York. There's already some material that we've posted on it, but whatever you send us as a result of this meeting will be posted on this page. And we're hoping that, I mean, this page is not linked to just to the CSW. It will continue, and it will be kind of a work in progress until the next CSW, while at the same time trying to be a useful information hub for generation equality. I have added my email, and I would like to invite Devon to add the email of NGO CSW New York, and also if you want Diana and Samira as co-conveners. Please reach out to us. Devon, when is the next meeting of the Arab Caucus? Devon? In any case, we will send you information about the next caucus. Again, this is a space that is a space for women to plan, to discuss, to concert, to exchange, and to support each other during the CSW and beyond. And we invite you to use it as such. And also, please, for next time, yes, thank you, Samira. Our next Arab Caucus is on March 26th. On March 26th at exactly the same time. So we'll see you next time. Again, this is the space for us as women engaging in the CSW to express our own priorities, our own realities, what we want to do, how we analyze the situation, what we think needs to be done. So let's get together and use it. Thank you also very much. We will get back to you with a way in which we could, I'm not good in terms of technology, but I'm sure there's a way for us to share the recording. Diana, Samira, do you want to say anything before we leave? I think not. Okay, thank you, everybody. I'm sure we will be getting back to you with the recording of this session. It's just that I can't, I don't know how. Somebody with much better skills and smarts will get back to you with this, and hopefully we'll see you and many of your colleagues on March 26th. Thank you so much.